Well, they're out in the parking lot. Well, it's a beautiful day. We should move this. If we didn't need the camera, we should move it to the parking lot because it's a beautiful day. Another beautiful August day. That's right. It's not typical August in the mid-Atlantic, but yeah. Tom, please. Steve's not here, so somebody's got to. Steve Miller always closed the door for Sunday school. All right. So the big question, can we worship wrong? Now, it's a bit of a trick question. Okay. Right. Okay. That's our, okay. Wrong attitudes and that whole head, hands, and heart thing. Yeah, we're going to talk about that. Exactly. But we like to sum things up, right? Everybody likes things nice, neat, in a nice little package. And our culture has gotten even more to where we like one-stop shopping. Okay? If I can't get it on Amazon, I don't want it. And if you can't find it at Walmart, if you can't find it on Amazon and you can't find it at Walmart, you don't need it. Okay? Now, I mean, it's Bezos that did Amazon, right? Is Bezos? Jeff Bezos? Yeah, he's a billionaire because people want everything nice in the U.S. They like everything nice, neat, and tidy in one place. We like it right here together. We just sum it up. And I get it, and I think we get it from, just tell me what's on the test. Our educators in the room, the kids want to know one thing. What's on the test? That's what I'm going to learn. Well, can we worship wrong? We worship wrong when we worship anything other than God. Okay? If we worship anything other than God, we're worshiping wrong. Now that's nice, neat, and pretty, but it gets a whole that we're gonna take that and we're gonna funnel that out, John. Yep. Yeah, not sure what Cain did or why, but he was worshiping wrong. And I want to also take it, when you worship anything other than God, you are suffering from or you are committing idolatry. Okay? So basically you are committing idolatry. Now if you go out here on Paper Mill Road when the light turns red and walk up to a car and knock on the window and ask them, what is idolatry? Okay, most people are going to suffer from, well, they either think about a totem pole, or some who have ever been in a Judeo-Christian church are going to say, well, the golden calf. Most people are just going to say, I don't know, idolatry, idol, American Idol. Is it something that comes out of that TV show? But when you worship anything other than God, you are suffering from idolatry. Exodus chapter 20. Now this goes back, idolatry is one of the top 10. You go back to the 10 Commandments, idolatry is right there. Exodus chapter 20, Verse 3, I'm going to read a few sentences here. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make for yourself a carved image or any likeness or anything that is in heaven above or anything in the earth beneath or that in the water under the earth. You shall not bow down to them or serve them. Remember our definition of worship a few weeks ago? The literal is to bow. Okay? You shall not bow or serve them. I'm in the middle of verse 5. For I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers on the children to the third and fourth generation of those who hate me, but showing steadfast love to thousands who love me and keep my commandments. Now, there's a lot packed into those few sentences. A whole lot packed into those few sentences. And I'm not going to dive into it. If you really want to study the context and all, I would recommend it. But for today, for 21st century Christians today, we have to remember, you shall have no other gods before me. Idolatry was a big deal through the Old Testament. I'll leave you to that as far as getting the details. But it was a big deal, and it comes in over and over again. And it continued into the New Testament time. 1 Corinthians 10. 1 Corinthians 10. First Corinthians 10, verse 14 says, therefore, my beloved, flee from idolatry. Now, if you go back and this week, if you'd like to, go back and read the whole chapter. And Paul is hitting the Corinthians pretty hard, and he sums it up with flee from idolatry. Again, I like 1 Corinthians because when I look at 1 Corinthians, I think of, our big cities in the U.S., especially San Francisco, Philadelphia. I think about those people and how these words would ring true today just like they did then. Matthew chapter 4, verse 10. We know what's going on here. It's Jesus is being tempted by Satan. And Satan kind of sums, or Jesus kind of sums things up to Satan when he says, Matthew chapter 4, verse 10, and Jesus said to him, begone, Satan, for it is written, you shall worship your Lord your God, and him only shall you serve. So when I think about, as I was going through this past couple of days, actually this week, I'm thinking idolatry is anything that makes us forget about God. And I am as guilty as anyone in the room, anyone in the city. There are times I forget about God. I just forget about it. And when that happens, that's when our worship is in vain. If we just flat forget about God. The whole forest for the trees things, you lose context, you lose purpose. Whatever you're going through. So, today we're going to talk about 3 types of idolatry and how they apply possibly 1 or 2 or all 3 to us as individuals and to our world today. And they are the idolatry of self-worship, the idolatry of materialism, and the idolatry of naturalism and science. And we're going to talk about the three of those today. So let's talk about, and I think this is one of our biggest challenges as God, trying to worship God, is this idea of self-worship. Or, if I say self-actualization, what does that mean to you? Whose name comes to mind when you think self-actualization? Anybody studied psychology? Maslow's what? Well, close. Maslow's hierarchy of needs. At the top is self-actualization. It's the realization of one's full potential and the process of becoming the best version of oneself. It's the pinnacle of psychological development. I need to be the best Rowdy I can be. You need to be the best James that you can be. And the problem with that, and that is, as humans, we want to be the best that we can be. All right? I went to the driving range yesterday. You know why? I want to be the best golfer I could be. Because my hands won't let me bowl anymore. But, and I will tell you, one of the things that I love about playing golf is that I forget about everything else. I can focus on that little white ball and getting that little white ball in that little hole. And I can make 97 really bad shots. But it's the three that I'm like, man, I can do this. I can do it. That makes me go back and pay more money again to do it again. I want to be the best that I can be. Problem with that is we often forget everything else. And while it is good to desire to be the best, we should never give up trying to get better and grow and mature. But if we do it, forget about God, I think we are worshiping ourselves. Self-actualization. Then there is personal gratification. The big three: sex, drugs, and alcohol. Why do people drink and take drugs? I think it was it Zeppelin, Led Zeppelin, to be comfortably numb. Pink Floyd. What's that? Pink Floyd. I was close. Thank you. We'll talk about music in a couple weeks, but thank you, Pink Floyd. Comfortably numb.
Forget about our worries for a little bit of time.
Forget about our worries for a little bit of time. We want, there are those of us that, and I wish John were here, there are those of us that want to run into burning buildings, and that adrenaline rush, ride roller coasters, ski down a mountain. Why would I ski down the mountain? I could take a car, people want that adrenaline rush to forget about them, Then there are those that just want to be known. Go back to 1 Corinthians. Go back to 1 Corinthians. Chapter 10. In the midst of all this idolatry that Paul is talking to the Corinthians about, go to verse 8. 1 Corinthians 10, verse 8. We must not indulge in sexual immorality as some of them did, and 23,000 fell a single day. Well, I can tell you that Sexual gratification was a big deal then, and it's still a big deal today. And it can roll up, not in the incorrect context, can roll up to idolatry. Narcissistic personality disorders. What is a narcissist? Yeah, I think the word, yes, that's right. It is a mental health condition in which people have an unreasonably high sense of their own importance. Now, how we get that balance between God created us, He loves us, and He cares about us as individuals, and it doesn't go into a mental disorder that says, I am the center of the universe. That's what we have. There's where the balance comes in. Because if we look at just how fearfully and wonderfully made we are, how great, you think about the beauty and the wonder, it's easy to think, I'm more important than maybe I. Because if I forget who God is in the midst of all that, and my Creator, He made me that way, and I forget about that, and I think, I'm pretty good. Matter of fact, I'm really good. Matter of fact, now that I think about it, I'm a whole lot better than everybody I know. While it is important to take care of yourself, it's naive to think that the world revolves around me. Now, can we worship wrong? Well, remember, we don't worship the church. Okay? Now, I will tell you, there have been times when trying to do church right, I have forgotten about God. You know, the whole forest for the trees. And I've had to remember, you know what, God? Or remind myself, oh, that's right, God, you're in charge. Not me. The success and failure of what goes on in these walls does not revolve around me. Doesn't revolve around Tom. Now, we're all tools here. But we're being blessed by God. And I learned this probably most during COVID. And I'll give James Norrid credit because he had to remind me that I don't think COVID took God by surprise. I don't think God stood up on his little throne and thought, I didn't see that coming. And that kind of got me through all of that really bad stuff, all that came out of the last 5 years. What's that?
Really bad stuff.
Really bad stuff. So we don't worship the church. We don't worship us. Thoughts? Self-worship? Arguments? Rebuttals? Refutes? Regrets? Rewards? I know, I don't know.
Write it down on a card.
I have more fun stumbling through it. Thoughts? Okay, let's talk about materialism. Now, I always thought materialism was, I want as much stuff as I can get. You know, he who dies with the most toys wins. You know, the man doesn't become the boy doesn't become a man. The toys just get more expensive, and the garage is the toy box. That's what I always thought. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. I go over to David Green's and I see his wood shop and I think, man, that is self-actualization right there. That is the epitome. Materialism is the belief that everything is made of matter and energy, rejecting the existence of immaterial entities like a soul or spirit. I'd have never thought about it that way. But when you think that all that exists is what I see and what I touch, how limiting that can be to us when it all revolves around basically my comfort and what I have right here. So while it is proper to build, plant, create, and accumulate for survival and comfort, it's foolish to think that anything matter or energy related that we see, that will save us for eternity. Exodus chapter 20. Exodus 20. Verse 17. Again, we're back to the top 10, the big 10. You shall not covet your neighbor's house. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife, or his male servant, or his female servant, or his ox, or his donkey, or anything that is your neighbor's. You shall not covet. Define covet for me. I want it. That's right. I want it. I want it. Now, I'll tell you, there have been things that I've wanted. I will tell you, I want a pizza. I'm craving. Haven't had a good pizza in a while. I'm craving a pizza. Little hint as to where we're going for lunch. Yeah, I'll talk him into it. And I really had a thought, and it just left me. Now I'm thinking, I'm thinking about pizza. You know, jealousy, coveting, and envy, terrible, terrible traits. Just terrible. Turn on the TV. Okay? Just turn on the TV. The big thing now is we shouldn't have billionaires. Used to be we shouldn't have millionaires until all the people saying that became millionaires. Now they don't want billionaires. Talk about Mr. Bezos. There are those that think he shouldn't have as much as he has. And they're worried about it. They stay up at night worrying about it. You know what? Good for him. Good for him. Because I tell you what, I've seen more miserable rich people. Okay? If you want a case study on misery, don't look at the poor people. Look at the rich people. Look at the rich and the famous. I mean, they have it. They shouldn't have it. I should have it. Somebody else should have it. Well, you know what? Don't get caught up. We don't have time. We don't have time to get up and worry about materialism. We don't have time. Thoughts?
Sometimes it's not just the rich who are caught up. Materialism. sometimes poor covet what they don't have.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, they covet what they don't have. Any of us covet what we don't have. Because, I see someone, there's always going to be someone bigger, stronger, prettier, funnier, smarter, richer, taller, more hair, younger. Always. Might as well just get over it. And what's that?
Isn't there an Eagles song for that? Get over
Get
it.
over it. Yep. Yeah, there is. Thank you. Back to our songs. But we shouldn't covet. Because salvation doesn't come through things. And happiness doesn't come through things. If your happiness is coming through things, be careful, because things will have a tendency to break or go away, dissolve. Materialism is the belief that everything is made of matter and energy, rejecting the existence of immaterial entities like a soul and as a spirit. We talked about we don't worship the church. We don't worship a book. We don't worship this. Now, this is an awesome tool, just like the church. We don't worship this. We worship God. And it is easy to fall into the traps that say, if I know all the answers on the test, I will be saved. I think there's a little bit more to it than that. That's part of the head. Oh, yeah. Now, I'm not saying this is worthless. By no means. Church is not worthless, and the Bible's not worthless. But we don't worship them. We worship God. Now, we learn about God here. We learn about God here. But we worship God. Think of it this way. One of my heroes, one of the people, and some of you know this, one of the people that I have studied and learned from was General President Eisenhower. Big fan. I've read a lot of stuff about him. I've watched documentaries about him. But I did not know him. See, God, this is God's autobiography. But the nice thing is, this is what we know about him. The nice thing is, God's not dead. And I'll never know Eisenhower because he's dead. God's not dead. You can know God. Now, we don't like to talk about that because it gets a little mystic. It's a little, oh, wait a minute. You think he's here right now? Yeah. Absolutely, he's here right now. You can know him, not just know about him. There's a difference. And I think when we talk about singing, it's one thing to sing about God, it's another thing to sing to him. And when we worship, we're not singing about God, we are singing to him. You see the difference? We sometimes we're comfortable having God distant because of my imperfections. But he doesn't have to be. You don't bow to somebody when they're not in the room. You don't bow to somebody that is dead. God, you can do both. God's here. We worship him because he's here. Now, how do we explain it? can't explain it, but he's here. It's beyond the matter and the, and the energy that does the voodoo that goes through, that makes these lights come on and all. Remember, it is beyond the material. Okay. Thoughts? We've talked about self-worship. We've talked about materialism. All right. Let's talk about naturalism and science. Naturalism is the belief that only natural laws and forces operate in the universe, rejecting the supernatural entities like God. Okay. So, I have to have, science says I need objective evidence. Okay? I do something, I need to see it, otherwise it's theoretical. It's just theory. But boy, once I see it happening, it's August. Chances are it's hot. And how do we know it's August? How do we know it's August? Other than it's hot. The calendar? How does the calendar know? Because of the sun, okay? And we've learned that the earth, the earth spins. Everybody knows the earth spins. That's how we know we're going to have a day and we're going to have a night, because it spins. And it spins every 24 hours. Well, the seasons come because not only does it spin, it wobbles. And how do we know it wobbles? It's because the sun, if you look out my back door, in the summertime, the sun sets over the school. In the wintertime, it sets over the neighbor's house. That's how, and on June 20th, it's the highest in the sky it's going to get. And on December 20th, it's the lowest it's going to get. And that's how we know. That's how we do it. I can do it by watching the sun. Just come back and forth up my house. That's how we know. We know that. While it's proper to learn about and care for and protect our cosmos, which is a good term, good biblical term, everything that looking at the telescopes and all of this. Did anybody get up this morning and look at the planets that lined up? Anybody did? Yeah, we saw it after the sun was up. But if you would have gotten up this morning as clear skies, and probably should have set the alarm, a bunch of planets lined up in the sky. Pretty cool. But the more we learn about it, it's arrogant to think that we can define, describe, or totally understand the mysteries of the universe. Where did it come from? How is it going to end? Where do we fit in? Are we just a little speck, third rock from the sun? 2 Peter chapter 3. Second Peter chapter 3. Ten through 13. And Peter writes, "But the day of the Lord will come like a thief, and then the heavens will pass away with a roar, and the heavenly bodies will be burned up and dissolved, and the earth and the works that are done, it will all be exposed. Since all of these things are thus to be dissolved, what sort of people are you to be in lives of holiness and godliness, waiting for and hastening the coming of the day of God, because of which the heavens will be set on fire and dissolved, and the heavenly bodies will melt as they burn. But according to his promises, we are waiting for new heavens and new earth in which righteousness dwells. I don't know about you, but I have no idea what he's talking about. I don't know how that's going to happen. What all is going to happen, how's that going to come into play? I have no idea. Frankly, I don't want to know. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. I can't explain it. And what's he say? Says, since all these things are thus to be dissolved, what sort of people ought you to be in the lives of holiness and godliness? So in other words, it's going to happen. Can't explain it to you. Can you explain it? You're the chemist. Can you explain how all that's going to happen?
Guess it's all going to disappear.
The right answer, sorry, I put you on the spot. The right answer is God's going to do it. God's going to do it. Okay, that's the right answer. And scientists will say, well, that's a cop-out. God's just a cop-out. But no, God's the answer. God's the reason. God's going to do it. Now, how are you going to do it, what all this is, and how all that's going to look, we can guess, we can banter back and forth, but in the end, it's going to be just as God wants it to be done.
Key thought there is that we as Christians are to be prepared. Regardless of what happens as far as the details, God got charge of that, but we have responsibility of being prepared ourselves for whatever might come about as far as the end of the judgment.
How this is all going to come into play. That's right. Remember, we do not worship knowledge. Yes, sir. Sorry.
You know how it's going to happen. It's going to happen like a thief. No warning whatsoever.
Yeah, the timing is going to be with no warning, covert. Yeah. But if you want to know the details, wherewiths for fours and all of that, you're just chasing the wind. And the fact is, we don't worship knowledge. Okay? If I memorize enough, if I can know enough, if I can just learn enough, I'll be able to be like God. And guess what? It didn't work with Adam and Eve, and it ain't going to work today. So get ready, because God's in charge. And if you think you're going to be like God, you think you can know enough, see enough, do enough, you can't. Because that's, it's not me. It's not, it's not self-worship. It's not materialism. And it's not naturalism or science that's going to save us when all of this blows up. When all of it comes to an end. When all of it is done. It's completed. When that's all done, that's when God will just continue to take over. And that's why we worship him.
There's this interesting thought about knowledge in 1 Corinthians 13.
Yep.
Where Paul says, if I have the gift of prophecy and know all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have all faith so as to remove mountains, but do not have love, I am nothing. So, yeah, we can know everything about the universe inside and outside, but it doesn't mean that that makes you right with God in any way.
That's right.
I'm more concerned about displaying love.
Yeah. That's that head, hands, and heart, remember? The head. It doesn't mean we don't play stupid. God doesn't want anybody to play stupid, okay? He wants us to know. And as humans, we're curious people. We're curious people. We should try to figure things out, okay? That's our head. We should. And our hands, get ready. Do the things that do good. Be a good human being. Because you can be a right human being and you can be a wrong human being. Okay? There's right and wrong ways to do pretty much everything that we do. So get your hands going. But your heart better be in it too. Because if your heart's not in it, you're missing God. You're basically missing God. Because God is love. God defined himself as love. God's not a professor. He's not an encyclopedia. He's love. Now, in the next 2 weeks, next week I'm traveling, so I won't be here. Tom, and we're going to start talking about the worship service in the coming weeks. Okay? Because that's kind of, when we think about worship, the first thing kind of comes to mind is the hour and 10 minutes or 15 minutes, depending on. And so we're going to talk about the worship service. And next week, what Tom's going to do, and this is what Tom's going to talk about how he prepares his sermons. What is he trying to accomplish on Sunday morning? So that each one of us can be better participants of it. When we understand what he's trying to achieve, we can better take it and run with it when we go out the door for the rest of the other however many hours there are in a week. So he's going to talk about that. And you'll be able to ask him some questions on how does he do what he does? Because and what his focus is, so that we can focus with him. Then, and that's the 17th. On the 24th, John is going to talk about singing and the singing part of our worship. And we are fortunate. He just spent a week were you in Texas or Oklahoma? Oklahoma. Learning a lot about. He is excited. We've created a monster because he's ready to take our worships, the song part and the song part to another level. Tom has already brought the sermons to another level. And then the week after that, I'm going to talk about the communion part. So, we are at the end. Any last words, last rites?
Question, comments, rebukes, rebuttals.
Yes, that's right. Go ahead.
No, a couple of comments that help put things in perspective, for me at least, just the thief in the night analogy. Just if I were to tell you that tomorrow, sometime this year, between tomorrow and the end of this year, a thief is going to break into your home. That idea of being prepared is just very profound. The priority becomes, being prepared rather than knowing which window he's going to come in through or what door. It's be prepared, and in that sense, the coveting or whatever the 10 Commandments may be, let's focus on having that right relationship with God first and foremost.
Mm-hmm. Let's pray. Father, help us as we go through life day in and day out. And we talk about the distractions, and there's so much that can distract us. And the big distractions, and even the small distractions, take us away from you. Father, help us in all that we do, all that we see, all that we hear, the good, the bad, let us keep in our minds that you are in charge and always look to you. We may not understand, we may not, we may not come to grips intellectually or emotionally or physically with what's going on, and we may feel dominated, we may feel defeated, but help us to always look to you for answers, look to you for comfort. Let us look to you for that hope of eternity, which we know you are in charge, and you are the one, you are the only one that we can count. Be with us that way in all that we do. In Jesus' name. Have a good week.